Standing One's Ground, Part 1. Second worst day of his life, or first, depending on one's perspective. It was definitely the final straw. Sherry actually took her stuff this time, like she wasn't planning on coming back. Tears burned in his dark brown eyes, threatening to betray him, to expose just how deep this wound went. Jeff was Latino, but his family presented as white. His father was white. His mother was employed in his father's world, so his father's experience was the family's experience until Jeff's adolescent years, until he was old enough to look like a threat to law enforcement. In the early years, Jeff made room for his maternal heritage in the selection of his friends. He was darker than his siblings, and his friends' melanated skin tones lessened the amount of dissatisfaction he consciously felt about his own skin tone. His subconscious was another matter. He lived in the warm embrace of white saviorhood until, outside the sphere of his father's influence, socializing with his friends, Jeff began to experience the truth of his appearance, his separateness. He had minor brushes with the law as he used his white privilege to stand his ground against the unjust treatment of his friends by law enforcement. They even arrested him once. It was galling how they treated him, and he fought back with all the natural strength and entitlement he could muster. His father bailed him out, and Jeff vowed inwardly to never be in that position again. He was going to be a cop. They would give him the respect he deserved once he had a badge and a gun. They wouldn't treat him that way once they realized he was one of them. Sherry had been the connecting piece. She was loving and loyal, and with her by his side, he had slowly but surely started to carve out a life comparable to his father's. An overpriced house in a gated community, a life with a whole bevy of white relatives and white friends. Jokes about people with his mother's ethnicity he usually wasn't privy to. The acceptance was heady. He began to feel like he had found his place. The other worst day of his life had been the day he was rejected by the police force because of that time he had resisted arrest. He was inconsolable. He cried freely for 2 days, sporadically ranting about the injustice of it all. He was never going to be anything, never live up to the standard. Sherry gave him a soft place to land and a listening ear. Eventually, she encouraged him to use his education and skills in other positions that required them. If he hadn't had Sherry, he might have shot himself with the gun he had gifted himself in anticipation of becoming a cop. Jeff was no longer in touch with his non-white friends, and he laughed easily at the racist sentiments passed around freely by his wife and in-laws. He continued to work on his degree and fill his time with employment that allowed him to wear a uniform and carry a gun, anything to prove he was one of the ones in charge. The chip on his shoulder was getting bigger, and his relationship with Sherry became contentious as he tried to prove to himself he was worthy of her. With the housing crash, more of his neighbors were moving out and being replaced by low-income renters. Low-income renters with children. Children who played in the street and made the noises safe children make when they play.